Yud Aleph, Mishnah Dalet. Says the Mishnah, Hazoyrek bayom, if one throws into the sea, Arba Amas, a distance of 4 Amas, potter. So you take an item, you throw it into the sea, or you're in the sea, and you throw it a distance of Dalet Amas, then you are potter. Why? Because the sea has the din of a karmelis. And we've discussed before that if someone throws something, Dalet Amas, in a karmelis, min ha-Torah you are potter, but midrabanan Chazal made an issa that you shouldn't throw something in a karmelis Dalet Amas. In a sea, the yam has the din of a karmelis, and therefore hazorik by yom arba amas you are potter. Min ha-Torah there is no chiyuv, but midrabanan it is also. Now the question is, why does the sea have a din of a karmelis? You could argue that the sea, a yam, has the din of a rishus hayochid, and you could argue that it has a din of a rishus harabim. Why? On one hand, you could argue it has a din of a rishus hayochid because it's got banks and it's got slopes, and it's certainly the sea is of depth 10 tefachim. So you could say that it has the status of a rishus hayochid. You could argue that it has the status of a rishus harabim because it provides way for marine traffic, and which could amount to like a very busy rishus harabim. So why is it treated as a karmelis? So the Magen Avraham, quoted here in the introduction by the art scroll Mishnayos to this Mishnah, says the Magen Avraham in Siman Shin Mem Hey Sivkot and Yud Dalet, he quotes the rule from the Gemara in Shabbos Daf Kuf Amud Aleph, which says that the wall of Rishus HaYochid is only treated as a proper wall if it has a height of 10 tefachim within a distance of 4 tefachim. So in other words, if you imagine a beach which very gently slopes down towards the sea, true that eventually will have the height of 4 tefachim, it will have the height of 10 tefachim, but it achieves that height in a distance way more than 4 tefachim. It's got to achieve a wall within a very short distance of 4 tefachim. It'd have to achieve that height of 10 tefachim within a small distance of 4 tefachim. If it's more than 4 tefachim, then it's not considered halachically a proper wall. And therefore, since most beaches and shores are going to be a very gradual slope down, it will not achieve a height of 10 tefachim within a space of 4 tefachim. That's one answer. That doesn't solve the problem of a riverbank, because many riverbanks are going to be much steeper than the incline of the beach towards the sea. And therefore that could be problematic, and it could be that a river therefore could be considered the Rishus HaYochid, at least min ha-Torah, but midrabanan it could be considered the karmelis, but that's beyond the scope of this. Another important factor is the Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan, also in the same siman in Shin Mem Hey, there it's Halacha Lamed Ches, he says that even if the banks are sufficiently steep, there is another factor, that there is a ritva in the name of the Ramban in Eruvin Chaf Beis Amud Beis, and it's also quoted in the Shar Tzion in Siman Shin Samach Gimel Sivkot Tzadi Dalet, that there is a limit of an enclosure which seems like a Rishus HaYochid, that one has to realize that he is in the enclosure. If he is in the area and it's just so vast that he doesn't even realize that he's in a sort of an enclosure, then it's not shaykh to call it a Rishus HaYochid. And therefore a sea is so vast that even maybe the banks of the sea happen to be very, very steep, and therefore you've got a halachic wall of 10 tefachim high within 4 tefachim, still it would not qualify as Rishus HaYochid because the area is so vast, it's not shaykh to call it a Rishus HaYochid. As regards why we don't call it a Rishus Harabim, well, the Magen Avraham, says that since travel on a sea is very difficult in comparison to travel on a road, therefore you can never have the din of Rishus Harabim, no matter how many people travel on it. Okay, that is taken from the introduction of the art scroll Mishnayos to this Mishnah. So hazorik b'yam arba amas is potter. If someone throws therefore daled amas in the sea, he's potter because it's got the din of a karmelis, and therefore there's no chiyuv deraisa, but there would be an issa drabanan. Im hoyer kak mayim rishus harabim malachis. If there is a rishus harabim and there is a muddy pool of water in the middle of the rishus harabim, hazorik l'soicha, and someone throws into it arba amas, a distance of 4 amas, chayav. Either there are some gears as b'socho, l'socho, so either he throws into it or that way, then he's going to be chayiv. Now, what? Why? The chiddush is that it's got even though there is like a little pool of water, it still retains the status of a Rishus Harabim, and we know that if you do a zrika in a Rishus Harabim 4 amos, you're going to be chayiv. So therefore, even though there is a pool of water here, nonetheless you're going to be chayiv. V'kama hu rekak mayim, and how much is this pool of water? Pachas me'asara tfachim. It's less than 10 tfachim. Now, says the Bar Tanura, v'kama v'rishus rabim halechis bo. He says the Bar Tanura, she'rabim mahalchim bo, that people just walk through this rekak mayim because it's less than 10 tfachim, and therefore it's not considered an impediment, an obstacle. People will still walk through it. V'kama hu rekak, but how long is this rekak mayim? Kama hu omkei. The name Makatim Shusarabim, who says the Bar Tanura, how deep is this this puddle of water, this pool of water, that people can still walk in it? V'lo nasa karmelis, and it hasn't got the status of a karmelis. So then up to 10 tefachim. But once it's more than 10 tefachim, then it has the status of a karmelis, and that will take away the chi of the raisa. The Mishnah concludes, Rekak mayim u'rishus harabim ha'aleches bo, hazorik b'socha arba amas chayiv. So the Mishnah concludes with a line which seemingly repeats what we said already in the Mishnah. So the Mefarshim explain why the Mishnah repeats itself. So the Bar Tanura says, the reason why the Tana repeats this idea, is to teach us two things. Even though this rekak, this puddle of water, is of width 4 amos, but its height is less than 10 tvachim, nidon k'rishus harabim, is still treated as a rishus harabim. The kafel nami, and it's also repeated, v'rishus harabim halechesbo, the phrase v'rishus harabim halechesbo is also repeated, lashmuinen, to teach us, that even though the rabbim only traverse it, only go through it, with difficulty, nonetheless, hiluch al yedei hatchak, shmei hiluch. The chiddush is that walking in difficult circumstances with difficulty through this puddle nonetheless is called hiluch, and therefore it has not lost its status of a rishus harabim, and therefore hazorik besocho arba amos is chayiv. If someone throws arba amos into it, then a person is going to be chayiv, because if it's thrown arba amos in the rishus harabim. That is the end of Mishnah Dalet.